The First War. The war between the Olympians and the Titans. The Titanomachy.
Once, the universe was ruled by a harsh and terrible king, a tyrant, Chronos. His rule was callous and cruel and supported by his siblings, the Titans. From Mount Othrys, their power was unchallenged. In his attempts to avoid his fate, the king paved the way for his nemesis. For the king had been cursed by his own father, Uranus. And in turn, he too was destined to be cast down and supplanted by his own offspring, by his child. And so, this nightmarish monarch consumed each of his children as they were born, until, by the wit and will of Rhea and her mother, Gaia, Mother Earth, one babe escaped his clutches, escaped his maw. Zeus. Youngest and bravest of the children of Cronos, he was raised in secret. Then, Zeus snuck into Mount Othrys and tricked the king into disgorging his siblings. Assisted by parties in the Titans, they fled. And at sea, mid-storm, the children of Cronos were met by nymphs from the court of the ocean depths, and bade to follow them. Hera, Demeter, Hestia, Hades, Poseidon, and Zeus all met with Oceanus and Tethys, the king and queen of the seas. The women were given harbour, given sanctuary, but the sons of Cronos they could not harbour. Forever were Oceanus and Tethys neutral in all matters outside of their realm, the seven seas. So, Hades, Poseidon, and Zeus said farewell to their sisters, and out into the world they went, to wage war on their father and all of his court, to rebel against Cronos and the Titans. That was some half a decade ago. Zeus.
And so, we fought. Hit and run at first. He could not defend everywhere, be everywhere. And I trained my brothers as I had been trained. But they were different. Hades was cautious, but deadly. His only strike was his last. Poseidon was the opposite, of course. His flurries of attacks were like a tsunami. The Titans were strong, but where they shone was inexperience. They knew the world and its ways, exerted control of it almost effortlessly. Where we had to concentrate, they had but to flick a wrist. And in clashes, it was the same. We avoided them where we could, but battles happened. We stood when we could, but we were just about wise enough to know when to flee back then. And slowly, oh so slowly, we gained momentum. For Cronos, the king, was not loved by any. All we had to do was break his chains on them, to defeat their fear, show them that it could be done. Oceanids came, many of my Curetes, the Satyroi and Oreades, even mighty Styx and her offspring, others of the lines of the Perpetuals, the Gigantes, the giants. We raised them with words dictated by she who trained them, grandmother. And we met them in great numbers, but always hid our strength, until we were ready. It was years. We tangled with them all. Mighty Iapetus, their leader, Cronos' general, Hyperion, Coas and Creus, my uncles, powerhouses all, their children, Epimetheus and swift Prometheus, Pallas, Perseus, Menetius, Aegon, all titans of war, and of course, the real danger, Atlas, son of Iapetus, possibly the most able and thus dangerous of them all. Yet we grew in power, experience, numbers, and soon our pebble became an avalanche. Theirs were the greater numbers, the greater arms, yet they did not expect our next move. After 4 years, we raised our banners proper. I found it in a dream, and then in reality. When I first stepped upon its heights, I was astonished. It had always been here. Many a time I had turned to an eagle and soared over these climbs, but now I flew down, and there she was. Our new Bastille, our vantage point, my first real home, Mount Olympus. I walked its peaks in my true form. Across the fields of Thessaly, I could espy the very home of my father, Chronos, his Mount Othrys. Once, there were many hills and crags betwixt our realms, but no longer. Our war has torn this place of beauty to a churning mire. Mountains hurled at one another. Now all that remains is a plain, flat and featureless. And we set up our banner. We took Mount Olympus and instantly ordered the stone, the sap, the skies, the ore, the fawns, to become into a castle. Not of splendor and power, but of war. A hard place from which to sally out. And Iapetus led the armies of my father out to destroy us to the least and the last. They climbed the slopes and approaches, those who only trod dirt. Those who stepped the skies came down from on high. But we were ready for them, and our full force came to bear. All of my training and experience, all of my skill. Hades, Poseidon, and the rest, we worked as one. We had mustered the giants, the gigantes, in the shadows, and now unleashed them. They poured flaming boulders down the mountainside, taking down entire columns of assailants. The skies we filled with arrows, and we who could bestride the clouds, and unleashed our fury on our enemies. Their unsubtle assault presumed victory. Iapetus was powerful, but he was a bull. The legions of Cronos broke, and they ran from our fury. Their generals and heroes could not hold them, and could not weather the combined fire from our walls if they came alone or in small numbers. So they too were forced to retire. We had a home, a beacon of resistance to the king. We had beaten his army so badly that they would never again assail the approaches to Mount Olympus, but for once only. From my tiny insurgents, it became an open war. Yet they were still far the greater. We were forced to leave the gigantes upon and around Mount Olympus, so we raided and forced skirmish after skirmish. We tried not to fight head-on. Time works differently for we immortals. The years passed. But why? Both sides despised each other and considered the other an existential threat. But we understood the universe on a deeper level, we gods. Thus would both sides take omens to see if an advantage could be gained, a game of prophecy and seers, limiting battle to moments that both considered auspicious, which were very rare. Skirmishes were inevitable for them, because they were sought out by us. Pressure. We annoyed and outmaneuvered them at near every point, forever prickling but rarely being caught. I attempted to perform coups of opportunity, to break the spell, to erode his myth, to remove the fear. Many times my brothers Hades, Poseidon, and I have done things worthy of song, of note, of remembrance. There is no Titan that we have not crossed swords with, apart from the king, of course. But the time for forays and ambushes is over. It has already been an age, like my only memory has been of this, all of this. The chasing, running, hiding, cold bloodshed in the moonlit night, hot slaughter under the burning sun. The grandmother groans under our marching feet. She is scarred by each confrontation. She is repulsed and burnt by the hideous beasts and gorgons Cronos breeds to replace the numbers of his dwindling armies, taking vile entities of his imaginings, then applying his harvester scythe across the skeins of time to blurt them out full-formed and voracious, twisted and evil. They wreak havoc amongst mine if we are caught, but now we must face them openly. For this cannot continue. One way or another, this must end. Yet father has never taken to the field, not once. Does he fear me? Gaia.
My son Cronos is mighty, and he wields the weapon I forged for him, the sickle. He is a force of nature, the master of time itself, most powerful of the Titans. I have set his own son against him, Zeus, the golden child. To him I have given succor and skill. He has all he needs to fight this war, if he can only endure. Can find the greatness within, but still not enough power to truly win it. Not yet. I support him with legions of warriors. I provide him with phalanxes of Quorites, spirits of war, and I whisper in the dreams of my mighty Gigantes. No matter the threats spoken to them from the king, I hold them to Zeus's cause, to his person, to his rule. Have I erred? For in him I tried to change the course of the very universe, to break the mold. His father Cronos is a horror, a tyrant. As was his father, my husband Uranus before him. I tried to instill virtue in Zeus, passion directed, love realized, beauty appreciated, clemency a strength, butchery a horror, restraint respected, wisdom lauded. Yet have I tempered him too kindly, wishing to expand his heart, have I lain him open for a trial that will kill him inside. Such duty have we all placed on his shoulders, enough to snap a god thrice his age. To stand against the lord of the stars and seas and land, the ruler of the universe, Cronos. But Zeus grows in stature each day, his followers flourish despite being hunted, more flock to his banners each day. Cannot it ever be enough, though, For the Titans are mightier than any nymph, nereid, oceanid, or construct. The war rages. I am torn asunder. I barely hold myself together when they meet in numbers. The pain, the misery, the excruciation of every blow on my body. Yet if he can face this, then so must I. And I hold one more gift back. I must have my tethers on the future king. I must have my influence on his course. So I will wait until he is at his lowest, when he understands the depths of his need, the true power he requires. Then I will come. But only then. I must have Zeus beholden to me. Chronos.
My unruly offspring, those called the Olympians. How I rankle to meet you in battle. My youngest, Zeus, the strongest. I see my parents in his ways. I thirst to get to grips with him most of all, to bring down my sickle and end this rebellion, this travesty with the one-armed jarring strike, the one severing of head from neck. Yet to do so would honor them too much. To fight is to admit that he is a worthy opponent, a true claimant to my kingdom. He, none of them, are worthy. None. And yet, the last whisper of my father, Uranus, it haunts me. The prophecy I attempted to thwart, that my own rule would end as it had begun. A father destroyed by his own flesh, his own progeny, his own son. Does Zeus deride me thus? Did he ever fear me as I did Uranus? Does my image haunt his dreams? Does he wake caked in sweat, slowly rocking himself back to reality, unsure if I stand above his body, despite the proof of his own eyes that have sharp scanned his surroundings? Does he hide this from his brothers, those who I held within mine own form? Do they all shudder when planning to accost my men, my holdings, my forces? My brothers are powerful, yet blunt instruments all. Iapetus. My son runs rings around him. Yet to replace Iapetus now would be folly. It would be to admit he is no match for the boy. And in that case, I would need take command directly, or vacate my throne immediately. I would divest myself of my dull but bellicose brother Iapetus, but no opportunity raises its head as of yet. I watch my dwindling court like a hawk. My own consort. She was the first. My queen. My Rhea. Betrayed me, and more followed, despite how I had her clamped in chains, held as a cautionary tale to all who would turn from my hand, my mastery. Few at first, some lost in their raids, small names, Oceanid's youths, my beasts. But with each passing year, my control wanes. Metis I hold to act as oracle, the others pointless. It is we men of the Titans who alone can win this affray. Zeus strikes at my very core, my kingship, my rule. Oh, how I would put him to the test. Take all of my sons at the once. to smash them to their knees, to extract from them my due, their utter surrender before my splendor. For I am their sire, I am their lord. I am king of the heavens, the seas, and the firmament, destined to rule. I took this throne. I took it, and I shall hold it. Prophecy be damned. Ever was Uranus spiteful. His curse I shall wring from my ears with the pleas from mine enemies. Come, my sons, impress me. Especially you, my youngest son, my youngest boy. Come to me, Zeus. Destroy Iapetus if you can. Earn my clash. Earn your spurs. I fill out my ranks with the unspeakable. The Gorgons I forge, the hate I manifest. The earth I twist into elementals of my ire. I will have him. But first, I send to my brother, Cronos, ever the bystander, ever the coward. He did absolutely nothing when we stood against Uranus. Nothing. Yet now he harbours the vipers, gives succour to our enemy, and I will chasten him, remind him of his decisions. Neutrality is not a perpetual option, merely a temporary avoidance. Of this, I shall remind him.
Prometheus.
A war unlike any. I can scarce believe it. Few can. The line's drawn. Yet so many went over to him so swiftly. The primordials mostly sat aloof. Their children, a different story. For Zeus and his brothers gained allies in unexpected quarters. Thanatos was to be expected, to be understood, but Styx, the very wife of Paras, a Titan, and she took her brood over to the enemy cause. Zelos, who is envy, Kratos, who is strength, Gaia, who is force, and dread Nike, who is victory. While their celestial powers stand with the rebels, their chances blossom, not merely for their strength at arms. For in the early days, we Titans, we thought these beings more a threat than Cronos' offspring. But the way their natures affected reality, they lent Zeus attributes that augmented his cause. Victory. Without her, would they have survived even a year? Yet always her effect on reality enhances them, their chances. And Gaia and Kratos stand against even our greatest lights. Barely, but they held, met us head on, and survived. But as time went by, it was these Olympians we knew held the greater power. Each day they gained in the only thing they truly lacked: experience. Why can the others not see this? I expected of Iapetus, my father, the unreasoned blinkant rage. But the others? Why can they not see that each moment this continues we lose ground, we lose support, we lose warriors? We Titans are losing. And even now the king will not deign to join the fray. Not yet. But he will, eventually. He will have no choice. Despite all of the power arrayed against them, the Olympians still stand. Coeus, Creus, Hyperion, Perses, Pallas, Menetius, Atlas, myself, and Prometheus. The Titans and their sons. We who have ruled the universe for an age. Despite all our combined power, they evade us. Even repelled us from their Mount Olympus. But now they come to open battle. They array their army before our lines. No more hiding, and we shall see who has the might, the right of the matter, on the open field of war. Healer.
Long have I walked these halls, long have I waited, always waiting as the fate of the universe is decided. I and my sisters, Hestia and Demeter, have been guests in the court of the king and queen of the seas, Oceanus and Tethys, safe yet unused, unable to help. I walk to the well of mirrors, where all can be seen. Gliding into the room, I see separate strands of my being reflected in the surfaces there. Memories, dreams, and nightmares, all presented to me harshly, but truly. The years inside the stomach of our father, Cronos, the endless sea of darkness that is within him, unable to talk, to move, to see, to hear. Banishment into Tartarus would have been a kinder fate. Yet we all waited and grew, always waiting, never acting. I feel the tightness in my chest, the blood hammering in my ears, frustration without a hope of release. For we must stand aside, we must stand above. It was agreed. I look to the mirrors above and around me, looking for the memory. It is dark but vivid as I approach the mirror. I see the waves of the sea. How we came out of the surf, my sisters and I, and on the shore, there they stood, like statues of alabaster, beautiful and terrible. The Titanesses. Phoebe, Thea, Themis, Mnemosyne, Selene, Leto, Eos. Only Mother was missing. Only Rhea. 100 Nereids and nymphs in our train, we walked to meet them. Metis was their leader at that time. She met us with cold eyes, pursed lips. Each were a mask of white stone, no hint of their intentions given. And we knew, should they strike, should this be a trap, then it would not matter the size of our entourage. They would have slain us all. Yet, through the vision of a third party, as the mirrors always show, my sisters and I looked no less mighty, had no less grace. But the parley was respected, and all we traded were words. Metis led the proceedings, of course.
Daughters of Cronos, we welcome you to this place, this gathering. Our promise of safe passage assured, we will not speak as enemies, but as beings who hold the very future of existence in the palms of our hands.
I nodded. Hestia and Demeter glared. We said nothing.
The war cannot escalate. Already, Mother Gaia, the very earth we stand upon, she quails. The battles of our siblings and yours, they cannot expand, or Mother may not endure.
Then perhaps you should call off your husbands and sons. Perhaps you should inform Cronos of this, and tell him to end this war.
You, of all people, You who have tasted firsthand the wrath and spite of the king should know better. He listens not to our counsel.
Then what exactly do you ask? That we surrender? That we beg our brothers to capitulate to the tyrant? We all troop back to the king's stomach so you can enjoy calm once more?
Not as much as all that, sisters in might. For we see your strength. We know your scope, your power. We are not our husbands or sons. We do not dismiss you, nor the danger of you unleashing your wrath in this war.
Then why are we here, sisters in power?
We would reach an accord with you, a simple thing, but one that when agreed upon cannot be broken.
Then speak.
We would have you stand back. We know that Zeus raises his banners on Olympus. We know he will bring the war to a new level of viciousness, of savagery. Open battle. And we know of your pact with them, your brothers. Do not deny it. There are oceanids of both loyalties in the court of the king and queen of the sea. We know. Yet, we ask you to stay your hand, to not get involved. Do not take the field.
And what would possibly persuade us to do that? To leave our brothers in their battle, our war of survival, every bit as much as theirs?
Our offer is simplicity itself. If you 3 stay your hands, then we 8 will stay ours. We Titanesses will take no part in the war unless you do.
We will consider this arrangement.
And we will consider this pact in place until such time as we hear of your intervention. Do not do it for us. Do not do it for yourselves. Do it for the mother. Do it for Gaia.
The meeting was over. The Titanesses became wisps of light and departed, and we returned to the seas. The next memory I do not wish to see. I shy away from the mirror, the look in his eyes when I told him. The betrayal. The betrayal. But he saw reason, knew it was for the best. The only true course that could be taken. For 3 of us did not outweigh 8 of them. He had the better of the deal, is what his smile and words stated. Yet the smile did not reach his eyes. I will never forget it. And it hurts to remember it. Because that day was the first I ever saw Zeus as he was. A young man, a boy, really. With all the weight of the universe on his shoulders. And I had let him down. But we held to the pact for all of the years that followed. And so, we are told, did the Titanesses. And so, we wait. Forever waiting. Hating every second of it. We watch for any sign of a breach. And we wait. But this is not why I came to this place today. I come to witness it. The first true battle against the armies of the king. For our brothers bring their own forces down from Mount Olympus. Today the fields of Thessaly will be burnt and blasted, will be warped and twisted, will be saturated with blood. I go to the largest pool, the deepest well in the room, and I see what transpires not in the past, but in the present. I watch my golden youngest brother, the handsome Zeus, with a lump in my throat. I witness the gods' array against the Titans on the fields of Thessaly. Iapetus.
I, Iapetus. I am the sword of Cronos. I am his vengeance. I am his general. Long have I chased these vagabonds, these petty things. Like eels they slip from my grasp. Like snakes they strike from the long grasses. And like worms they flee again back into the ground, to where we do not know. Without honour, they would not stand and fight. When caught, they fought like cornered animals, their weapons so weak, forged of substandard materials by substandard smiths. We cut through them with ease. Of armour there was nothing but the most basic of shields, but they were strong, and fierce, feral. They were fast. And they did not turn and fight. They fought only to escape. Encirclements were punched through, champions overwhelmed by multiple of them, and the children of Styx were amongst them, often Styx herself. We hunted her more seriously than the brats most battles. Yet the battles were few, too few. Omens and portents, pah! We forge our own destiny. I had them under my blade more than once, only to be denied as they sent the golden pup to hold me off. Zeus. I look forward to taking his head to my brother, Cronos. The only one of us brave enough to actually strike him, Uranus. Cronos. He is the true and only king. He is the tyrant slayer. And Zeus has not merely foxed me. I admit it. He has a bottomless pit of low cunning. I underestimated him in the early years. Thought each and every encounter would be their last. But somehow, they have not only survived, but like base beasts amongst the turmoil, they have thrived. I underestimated him again at Olympus, a blunder and a shame I have yet to remove. I trusted in the mettle of my men. Ha! Now, we have things that will not flee, who glory in the carnage, the creatures of the king. We are more ready now than when we started. Yet he remains slippery, all of them. Poseidon is easiest goaded. I nearly had him. Hades, if anything, more cautious than either, perhaps more deadly. Yet, as always, it hinges on the golden child, Zeus. How I despise him. Zeus. Whenever we catch him, he retreats his scum back beneath the shadow of his citadel, where his gigantes can cover us with hails of boulders. He was trained well. But ultimately, unlike little Zeus, I only need to be lucky once. Just the once. And today, the auspices are carried out, the order given. Cronos lets me off the tight leash, and the whelp comes out from the shadow of his mountain, and arrays for war. The skies darken as they march out. Hera.
The skies darken as they march out. My brothers and the greater allies ride in chariots to distinguish themselves, so they can hasten to where they are needed in the lines. They array themselves for war in patterns that will be replicated through the ages. They break into 3 forces. Patient Hades commands the force to the left flank. Tempestuous Poseidon is given the right flank. Beloved Zeus takes the reins and rides his chariot to the center. Attempting to cover their weaknesses, Hades has mighty Kratos. Poseidon hath Gaia. The center is supported by Zelos and Nike, but Styx and Thanatos hold in reserve. Before my brothers are their flanks, Oceanids, Oreads, Nymphs and Nereids alike. Like an army of light, they shine brightly even below the clouding gloom. The enemy could not be more different. Many of the same beings, small gods, spirits and nymphs aplenty, stand in their lines. Yet amongst them are beings of darkness, the horrors conjured and then given form by Cronos. And the Titans ride in chariots also, but theirs are the more and the greater. Iapetus takes the center, the vanguard, his siblings dotted across their lines, ready to match their heroes against ours. But again, they have more. Zeus strikes his trumpets, their echoes ring around the basin. The Titans retort, and so many resound. It is a wonder the mountains do not shatter. Zeus heads towards a place our king cannot lose, a spawning bed for his horrors. Thus, both sides know the goal. The Olympians will head towards their mark, and the Titans will head for them. To the Titans, this is a singular chance. To get to grips with my brothers who have been so wily for so long. Both armies march. It begins. Iapetus.
The boy has some skill, yet he is doomed. His army is not so different to our own. Oceanids, nymphs. He has Satyroi, Oreads, and Curites. We have more of the former, and our own combat resources. Yet he has not brought his gigantes to the field. A sheer lack of confidence from the boy? Perhaps. He holds them back to maintain a base, yet without them, he is outmatched. But does he fathom by how much? Have the years of pilfering victories filled him with arrogance? He cannot win, yet he and his brothers come on. The blocks of our forces march toward one another, but the temper is too high. The years of stings, frustration, hatred, and without an order from either Zeus or I, both of our armies break into a furious charge. We upper beings of power trade abilities as the distance between us is eaten. My brother Hyperion brings all of the heat down on the clouds, burning them up so he might shine his light on their forces, attempting to dehydrate the nymphs and oceanids, burn the beings of plant and wood. Yet Thanatos and Styx counter. They are mighty. Children of night and darkness, they summon tenebrous tentacles that reach into the heavens, and all is near blackness again. The advantage goes to the smaller force here. So what? Ours is the power in sword and spear. We rush to meet them. My sons I have given the lordship of the wings, mighty Atlas, matched to Kratos and Hades. He commands the right flank of our army. His men charge, as do those of Hades, but the reserves and major players are not so frantic. Both sides on this flank are controlled. Their heroes eye each other across the fray. Poseidon's blocks rush onward and into our troops with gusto. His initial impact is hard. Our sides seem to falter, but he is being played. Menoetius leads that front. He is toying with the powerful Pup. The golden cur takes the center, so that is where I am. My charioteers are the twins, Prometheus and Epimetheus. They will bring me to Zeus if ever a gap opens. I cannot stop my brothers from their attempt on the boy. Coeus, Creus, Hyperion are all present, but they will cloud walk, will hit where and when they choose. So I send Pallas and Perses to assist Menoetius. Aegeon and Astraeus I give to Atlas. We outnumber them. We always did. But today it tells. In the center, we too charge. A dust cloud is born of each army's onward rush. Fire and light and winds and hills are thrown from one side into the other. The carnage is great before even the armies meet. The fields of Thessaly are torn, and the mother Gaia screams. The clouds of thunder above are filled with combatants. The gods of skies and wind tear each other apart, falling when blooded and bested. Thanatos walks the darkness there, and we see him matched to Hyperion. Their clash resounds below, each thunderous strike with the speed of lightning, the force of a whirlwind. Yet it is on the fields that all will be decided. The initial meeting is a deeply pleasing sight, for the creations of the king crash through their lines like storms through thin sails. The screen of Satyroi are pushed back or run directly over. The Curetes, the minor gods, their phalanxes are cracked, their spears broken, unable to pierce the hides of the terrors of Chronos, their shield wall crushed and scattered. And Prometheus cracks the reins of my chariot. He has an opening, and I can see where he is taking me. To the golden cub, to Zeus.
I cannot watch the center. I cannot. Iapetus comes. I drag my vision to my dark brother, to Hades, commander of our left flank. Aegeon stands before our forces and brings the east winds down on them. They practically stand still, bracing now, unable to countercharge. And then they hit. Astraeus leads the way as he heads the tip of the wedge. The warrior spirits, minor gods, oceanids and nymphs loyal to Cronos. They gather behind him, fanning out, but no less force in their attack. The winds push them on and into our ranks. They near bowl them over, yet the wind halts, for Kratos breaks through the ground. He takes Aegeon in his hands and attempts to break him in a grasp. Yet Atlas comes to his aid, and though Aegeon loses consciousness, he is not destroyed, for Kratos drops him as Atlas rushes closer. Astraeus strikes many from life, his sword sharp, his reactions sharper. Many of our people lose limbs, heads, guts as he hacks his way forward. The line quails, but holds as a cheer goes up, as my brother's chariot arrives, and Hades leaps from it into the path of Astraeus. The two walk to each other and trade blows immediately. Showers of sparks flash in the darkness as they clash, yet Hades disarms Astraeus, then swings at his head, knocking off his helm. Had but his sword been sharper, Astraeus would be done. Ears ringing, the Titan disappears into his lines again. Their onward rush blunted, Hades holds out, even as Creus descends from the heavens on high. I flick my eyes to the right flank, to my boisterous brother Poseidon. He is a force of nature. A wave of power emanates from him. Gaia, goddess of force, stands beside him, guarding him. The two are cutting a bloody wake into the enemy, their forces only barely keeping up with them. The king's men seem shattered. But all is not as it seems. Cronos stands above them in the skies, now darts down at them. Yet his power is not alone, for she has taken the field also. It is their mother. It is Styx. Her black shape catches Cronos and heads him off as they trade blows. The skies bleed black blood on those below. But Poseidon is not safe. He is strung out. Damn him! He is smashing his way into a net of his own making. For Menecius has Pallas and Perseus lead their guard into combat. They are not striking at Poseidon. They are butchering the lesser gods, forcing back the men on his sides. Menecius then strikes. He stands before Poseidon and engages him man to man. Poseidon charges, but Menecius hurls a spear at him, taking him off balance. The spear pierces the side of Poseidon, who does not even flinch as it breaks off. Yet Menecius has another flying at him before he gets another pace, and Poseidon's onward charge falters entirely. It is now that Gaia is accosted on either side by Pallas and Perseus. They both engage with short-bladed swords. Their shields she smashes with ease if she connects. But neither allows this. As a few slashes strike and Gaia must dodge and strike back, and she is edged away from Poseidon even more. It is then that the trap completes, and monsters of Cronos crash into the ranks behind Poseidon. He is now alone in a sea of titans, and Menecius is laughing as he now coaxes him even further on. If my brother takes even a half dozen more paces towards Menecius, he is dead.
The center implodes as Zeus's forces are thrown around like rags. The lesser gods and his armored soldiers no match for the beasts we set against them. My chariot still away from him. I see what transpires. Zeus's charioteers bring him into the fray, heading directly for where his line crumbles. Aias, mightiest of the beasts of Cronos, is his target. A chimera, a gorgon. It can eat 100 head of oxen a day. None have faced it and lived. But here comes Zeus. His charioteers are excellent, perhaps on a par with my own. Looking to ram the beast, he veers at the last and comes to its side. Zeus's sword slices at Aias, the king's most precious pet. The beast roars, then stomps and rams at them like they were flies. And Zeus, the young whelp, throws darts at the monster, shafts of wood sharpened to points. No gleaming weapons of power has he, yet his eye is keen, his aim precise, and Zeus pierces Aias in both orbs. It rampages back into the lines of weak titans, but stumbles. And then, while it raises in agony at being blinded, Zeus leaps down from his chariot and takes its head with his sword. And their lines cheer his victory. I come on to silence them. I whip my charioteers, Prometheus and Epimetheus, so they pass on the pain to my own horses. They run all the faster for it. Zeus marks my advent and throws out his arms in challenge. My chariot side blades take a score of those between us. Mangled legs and arms and blood rupture into the air as we pass them. But I too order my chariot slowed and step down to meet him. Man to man. All the while, my two charioteers match me but one step behind. The source of his speed and seemingly blessed status. For Zeus hath his own charioteers with him also, Zeus and Nike. Victory. I am almost of a mind to ignore the boy and take her head, for she does stack their fates in their direction. But it is not decided by me, but by the charioteers. For Nike and Prometheus engage, as do Zeus and Epimetheus. So it is just me and the boy, Zeus.
Once more I see Hades and his side. Kratos stands above Aegeon as Atlas comes to best him. Both gods of strength and power, they come to grips and wrestle, trading fists and elbows and clasps designed to snap bones, rend tendons. But despite the might of Kratos, Atlas is the stronger. And soon, the son of Styx is forced to withdraw. A clump of dust is kicked into Atlas's eyes, but Kratos knows he must survive and beats a hasty retreat. Crius comes down from the skies, wreathed in glory. Hades stands below, looking up at the Titan of heavenly constellations. A myriad of sigils float in patterns designed to confuse and confound Hades. He is mesmerized for a moment, but it is enough. Crius strikes down like an eagle. The blade of Crius comes out of Hades' body, bloody red. Shaken from his reverie, Hades manages to block the next dozen attacks. The spear of Crius darts out again and again, forcing Hades backwards. All Crius waits for is the one opening, the one error. And it comes. For Hades retreats, and so falls on a rock. And as he tumbles off his feet, Crius strikes. His spear is grabbed in mid-air though, as Kratos again bursts from the ground. This time to save my brother, Kratos hurls it back at its owner, then turns and takes Hades under his arm, bringing him to safety. And our left flank is in full retreat. The right flank. He is in grave danger, but for once in his life, Poseidon does not allow his rage to overcome him. He can see Menecius and his ploy, while Pallas and Perses inflict 100 tiny cuts on Bia. Poseidon can see his forces come to naught, for they extend too much, advanced too far, and the things of Cronos are near to cutting them off. Poseidon makes eye contact with Menecius, then turns and plunges into the battle behind. The Titan thwarted, he laughs with joy to see the Olympian so distraught. Poseidon rushes back and breaks the 2-on-1 against Bia. The two of them now forced to fight through the army of Titans to get back to our side. If it were not for over a score of Oceanids who threw themselves between he and Menecius, he would be dead. The casualties are unspeakable. The flower of his force lies dead on the field. Poseidon now carries Bia, for she has lost so much blood in his defense, and they rush from the battle with what little remains of the right flank. It all stands on Zeus.
As Prometheus and Nike trade javelins, then swords, Epimetheus is being smashed by Zeus. The thinker unable to divorce himself from the decisions he could have made. The Olympian ally takes cups of blood from him in scars that will last. But Zeus, he does not wait. Full of confidence, full of vigour, puffed up by his victory at Olympus, he feels himself my equal. And he charges. He moves so fast, none but I could see him, bending reality as he comes. He is powerful. But I smirk behind my high helm as I merely pace toward him. At the last, I quicken my stride and show him how outmatched he truly is. Way before he reaches his apex, I am there. My spear slammed out. I catch him before he can block. I sidestep and he sails past me, rolling to avoid my swing at his back. He rises fast, but there is ichor on my spear tip. First blood is mine. A wave of power comes toward me, but I deconstruct its energy so they pass over like a breeze. A fool. His brow is sheeted with sweat at the effort to summon what I broke apart with a mere thought. I rush forward, darting at him with 1,000 strikes in a moment, probing for a weakness. He defends well, but he is not my equal. He comes at me with overhead swings of his sword, and I see my opening. He parries blow after blow, attempting to close the distance, but he cannot, and I take him in the rest. My spear going straight between the bones of his forearm and down. I yank the spear while twisting, near cutting his wrist and arm in half. He drops the sword, of course, yet he retains his center. The falling sword is caught with his left hand, and he brings it up just in time to deflect my own blade thrusting toward his neck. The force used was too much, and he can barely prevent the penetration. His weapon shatters as it is struck by mine. The blade plunging into his neck, at the side, then out again. He exerts himself, and is covered in a golden light as his aura flickers, and his neck is healed. Fast, but not complete. His arm is still in tatters. I smile again, ready to go in for the kill, but dust covers my eyes, and in the second it takes me to blink them clear, his charioteer, Zeus, defeater of Epimetheus, has wheeled in. My eyes clear to see Nike jump aboard and drag on their lord. And little Zeus is there, slouched in the back of the chariot, headed back to his mountain keep. I extend my arm. I throw my spear. It catches his charioteer square in the back. It will not kill Zeus, but I will not see him in battle for many moons. Nike snatches the reins from the slumping squire, making sure all three stay aboard as she rides for the shadow of Mount Olympus, and their warriors follow them in a full rout. And across the field I see it replicated. The lines of the Olympians break and run. The flank under the command of Hades falls back in good order. He sees the ebb and flow and knows when he is beaten. The forces of Poseidon are bogged down. He advanced too quickly, farther than even Zeus, and our monsters rampage across their ranks. Menetius punishes his army fiercely, as he did the unwitting Poseidon. They retreat. But the tithe of blood and gore is higher than anywhere else. Mauled by Pallas and Perses, Poseidon passes beer to Styx herself. Turning to re-enter the fray, Styx restrains Poseidon, bringing him back to Olympus also. They leave most of their number on the field as finally Poseidon is dragged from the battle, still screaming his rage at Menetius, and to the shadow of Olympus they retire, to lick their wounds, to count their dead. All with the howling of our army jeering them as they run, an echo that I know will haunt them in the days of inactivity between clashes. Honor restored, I command my men to stand to. We cannot follow them under the watch of the Gigantes, but we have roundly thrashed them this day. I would not be surprised if this night they lost more in desertion than they have today in dead. For now none can argue. None can deny the simple truth. Zeus, Hades, and Poseidon are nothing but upstarts. Nothing but gnats that sting in the night. Against the armies of the king, the power of the Titans, they